Hare Krishna. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Bhaja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Bhaja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Bhaja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Shri Radha Madhav ki jai, Shri Radha Giridhari ki jai, Granthāraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gopramanande. Do you know how to latch this back on? Or the latch is broken? Okay, thank you. So thank you all once again for inviting me to read Srimad Bhagavatam in your presence. Hare Krishna. I'm very appreciative of this opportunity. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we'll cover 3 verses today. Today is April 16th, 2025. We are on the 8th canto, chapter 6, The demigods and demons declare a truce. We covered up to verse 28 yesterday. We'll do 29, 30, and 31 today. So I'll just go through 29 and 30 and we'll do 31 together. Devairo chanimasinam guptam cha surayuthapai shriya paramaya jushtam jita shesham upagaman. The demigods approached Bali Mahārāja, the son of Virochana, and sat down near him. Bali Mahārāja was protected by the commanders of the demons and was most opulent, having conquered the entire universe. Text 30. Mahendra shlakshnaya vacha santvayitva mahamati abhyabhashata tatsarvam shikshitam purushottamat. After pleasing Bali Mahārāja with mild words, Lord Indra, the king of the demigods, who was most intelligent, very politely submitted all the proposals he had learned from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. Now we'll do text 31 together. Tattva arochata Daityasya tatranye ye suradhipa shambaro rishtanemi cha ye cha tripura vasina tattvarochata daityasya tatranyeye suradhipa shambaro rishtanemischa ye cha tripuravasina tattvarochata daityasya tatranyeye suradhipa shambaro rishtanemischa ye cha tripuravasina. Tattvarochata daityasya tatranyeye suradhipa shambaro rishtanemischa ye cha tripuravasina. Tattvarochata daityasya tatranyeye suradhipa shambaro rishtanemischa ye cha tripuravasina. Tattvarochata daityasya tatranyeye suradhipa shambaro rishtanemischa ye cha tripuravasina. You know? Tattvarochata daityasya tatranyeye suradhipa shambaro rishtanemischa ye cha tripuravasina. Tattvarochata daityasya tatranyeye suradipa shambaro rishtanemischa yecha tripuravasinaha tattaro chata daityasya tatranyeye suradipa shambaro rishtanemischa yecha tripuravasinaha. Anyone else would like to think about it? Anybody online would like to chant, please? No? Okay. Tat. All those words. Tu, but. Arochata were very pleasing. Daityasya to Bali Mahārāja. Tatra as well as. Anye others. Ye who were. Asura Adhipa the chiefs of the Asuras. Shambara Shambar. Arishtanemi Arishtanemi Cha also. Ye others who. Cha and. Tripuravasina all the residents of Tripura. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The proposals submitted by King Indra were immediately accepted by Bali Mahārāja and his assistants, headed by Shambara and Arishtanemi, and by all the other residents of Tripura. Purport. It appears from this verse that politics, diplomacy, the propensity to cheat, and everything that we find in this world in individual and social negotiations between two parties are also present in the upper planetary systems. The demigods went to Bali Mahārāja with a proposal to manufacture nectar. And the Daityas, the demons, immediately accepted it, thinking that since the demigods were already weak, when the nectar was produced, the demons would take it from them and use it for their own purposes. The demigods, of course, had similar intentions. The only difference is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, was on the side of the demigods because the demigods were his devotees, whereas the demons did not care about Lord Vishnu. All over the universe, there are two parties. The Vishnu party, or the God-conscious party, and the godless party. The godless party is never happy or victorious, but the God-conscious party is always happy and victorious. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuramitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the dark of ignorance. My spiritual master kindly opened my darkened eyes and filled my heart with transcendental knowledge. I offer my obeisances unto his lotus feet. I also offer my obeisances to all of you assembled Vaishnavas, seek your kind blessings and permission that I may recite Srimad Bhagavatam. So, we are continuing from yesterday's story where the Lord had advised the demigods to hatch a plan and approach Bali Mahārāja because time factor was on the side of the demons. So then Indra came very gently, very peaceful. I think need some to manufacture some nectar here. It's a very interesting use of word, manufacture nectar. Hare Krishna. And so here we see in this story, Indra, generally, he's the stronger party, but in this particular scenario, he is now has to employ all the tact and the most refined speech he can muster. He has to also follow the Lord's advice on not getting angry and how he should approach Bali Mahārāja. So, the demigods were instructed to work cooperatively with the demons, even though the demons are not trustworthy. Right? And in verses 29 to 31, today's verses, they actually put this diplomacy into action. Now, the surprising success of their proposal, it's surprising because, wow, yeah, they actually accepted the proposal, right? Underscores the power of how something is said, not just what is said. If you look carefully how Indra approached, right? That he spoke very sweetly, humbly, but a lot of intelligence, like mild words. But it says intelligent Indra, and he used mild words. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said, Anudvega karam vakyam satyam priya hitam chayat swadhyaya bhyasanam chaiva van mayam tapa uchyate. This is the austerity, tapa uchyate. Van means words. So Krishna uses this van, we hear the vak, vacham, words. We have the same, even the W, I guess words might come from, possibly, potentially. Van, vak. Speech that does not agitate, that is truthful, pleasing, and beneficial is austerity of speech. So in verse 29, the demigods sit near Bali Mahārāja. They're not standing in some kind of bracing for action. They're sitting. That's interesting. Just that body language. They're sitting, they're peaceful, they're vulnerable because they're sitting. And they've lost to the demons just recently. And they're diplomatic. So that's the scene we set up in verse 29. Verse 30, we see Indra, Buddhiman. Buddhiman means intelligent. He's using his intelligence. He's speaking politely and respectfully, relaying the Lord's words. The Lord had told them, this is the plan, this is how you're going to speak, this is how you're going to approach. And in verse 31, surprisingly, Bali and his generals agree without hesitation. So, Indra's refined speech, why did it work? Indra didn't just follow orders. He didn't do it begrudgingly, and it made, because if you do something begrudgingly, it'll show in our tone of our voice, it'll show in our body language, even though you may be saying, I'm sorry, but you can tell by the face that the person making it not really sorry. But Indra, he didn't just follow the orders, he embodied the mood of the instruction. He didn't speak out of desperation or pride. He delivered the Lord's message with grace and sincerity. He took it to heart. I'm going to really embody the message here. Understanding is still diplomatic. In one sense, it's kind of a drama, but you better bring your Oscar-worthy performance in this particular one. A really good performance. And you have to get into the mood of it, in the spirit of it. So the Sanskrit word we say, mridu vakyai. Mridu means gentle. Now that's not the word that was used here. The word here was sanka. Yeah, it was a very nice word. Yeah. Shlakshnasya. So that refers to, very gentle and sweet words. Prashritai, humble, and buddhiman. Buddhiman means intelligence. So gentle words, humility, and intelligence. So it's not just the words, but the manner of delivery that's important. That's the lesson. Speech is very powerful. Speech is make or break somebody. People go from nothing to President of America just by speaking. For example, if you just study some of how people became presidents of America, it's like the topmost parampadam for politicians, right? And just look at, I was just observing the history of, say, Barack Obama, for example. He didn't come from high parentage or anything like that. He had many things that are against him, He was the first black body president and so many things. But at the same time, his speech was so compelling and powerful. He really burst into the scene in the 2004 Democratic Convention, and just the way he spoke, everybody's like, wow, this is, and then that momentum of speech carried him through. So you can see the power of speech. It's just speech. Speech can build relationships. That's what Indra is trying to do right now, rebuild the relationship, build the bridge. Speech can also destroy devotional relationships just as easily. If I'm being critical of somebody in a harsh way, oh, you always sing out of tune, you sing so long, it's annoying. It's just a careless comment to somebody because I didn't like the way they led Kirtan, for example. Even if it's true, the tone and the timing matter. What is the impact of those words? We are advised to, for example, offer corrections in private and offer praise in public, right? So if we offer corrections in public in a harsh way, it can do a lot more damage, and the corrective aspect of it is also lost. You end up humiliating somebody. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, chapter 19 says, one who identifies faults in a Vaishnava but does not correct them with compassion is himself contaminated. That's interesting. The 11th canto. That, yes, corrective action has to be taken most of the time. That's how we learn. And most Vaishnavas, they're very humble and they live to be corrected, and they're very sweet about it. But when we correct someone, but if we don't do it with a proper sense of compassion, then it's said that that person himself is contaminated. That's an interesting angle. The negative aspect of misapplied speech, even though the intention may be to improve the standard or something like that. Right? So that's how speech can hurt, but speech can also heal and uplift. Prabhu, I really appreciate your enthusiasm in Kirtan. Maybe next time we can include more devotees, by rotating, give everybody a chance. Well, thank you for managing the altar. I've noticed some things we can do better. May I share my thoughts? So the way it is approached makes a big difference. Because you start by expressing some gratitude, expressing some appreciation of their sincerity and so on. It's a healing kind of speech. And when you give a sincere compliment even, for example, sincere compliment of appreciation, it'll make that person's week or even whole year. I heard someone say, oh, I can live for a whole month on a compliment. I don't need to eat after that for a whole month. It's so nourishing, encouraging. And in particular, if it's a sincere compliment. Sincere compliments means you're really appreciating the effort a person put in, and it's a very specific. Like, the more specific you are, the more sincere it'll be. You're not a general, oh yeah, you're a great devotee, Prabhu. Speech, the culture of speech in any given community you'll be able to create an emotional safety, a sense of emotional safety when you speak a certain way. Devotees thrive where they feel safe to express, they feel safe to fail, and they feel safe that, yes, I will grow here, even though I may fail. So we have to be careful. Like we say, watch your mouth, right? In other words, think twice before speaking. Of course, I tend to speak twice before I think. That's just one of my habits. But we're better off to try to really think twice before speaking. It's very common, right? Watch your mouth. This is so important, this watch your mouth, that it's the opening word of the opening verse of the nectar of instruction. Watch your mouth. No, sorry. Vacho vegam. Vacho vegam. The first word, vacha. Vacha vegam, manasa krodha vegam. But it's so important that it's the opening word of this very, very important fundamental book. It's kind of important to see how it's place there in the 6 qualities of identifying an eligible spiritual master. This word vak or vacha, I mean, you see it everywhere. Shri Bhagwan uvacha, it's there. So the word vak or vag appears in several key verses. It's all over the place. One of my favorite verses, Tatte Anukampam, everyone knows this verse. Tatte Anukampam sasamikshamano bhunjana evatma kritam vipakam hrid vag vapurbir vidadhan namaste jivetayo mukti pade sadaya bhak. That what makes somebody eligible to attain the stage or to attain the liberation? Jivetayo mukti pade, the platform of bhakti, really. Bhakti pade. Here, Mukti Pada refers to Bhakti Pad, to attain Bhakti Pad. What makes someone eligible? That one continues to suffer the ill effects of one's past misdeeds. Right? Vipakam. Vipakam means thoroughly cooked, or thoroughly ripened effects of our bad behaviors in the past. We have to deal with it. We have to tolerate it. While tolerating that, we are waiting for what? Tatte anukampa. Anukampa is mercy of the Lord. And then we have to offer namaste, obeisances. But not just physical obeisances. Obeisances at 3 levels. Hrid, really with the heart, with feeling obeisances. Hrid vag, with the words. What we speak should reflect our obeisance, our namaskar to Krishna. And vapu, the body, of course. You put the body straight, flat. Pranipat. Pranipat, you know, tad vidhi pranipatena. Pranipat means pra, forward, knee, down, pat, flat. Forward, down, flat. You know, Sanskrit is awesome. You can just take it apart. So we offer obeisances physically with our words. But there's a beautiful word in that verse that I really like. Anukampa. Anukampa is translated as mercy. But you take that word apart. Anu means following or in resonance with. And kampa means come from kampana, which means trembling. We tremble when we're undergoing something emotional. It could be excitement, could be fear. Whatever it may be, we're trembling. If somebody comes to you trembling and they want to open up their heart to you, and you put down everything else you're doing and you try to get into their space, their feeling, to really feel their pain, and you even tremble a little bit yourself, that is called anukampa. To tremble along with. To really feel. You know, when 2 strings are tightened exactly the same tightness, then when you pluck one, the other vibrates automatically. It's sympathetic vibration. That's called resonance. So you resonate with somebody. That's why it's called sympathetic, because you have sympathy. But it's even beyond, it's empathy. You know, because you feel the other person's pain. Now, why am I talking so much about this? Because the kind of mercy that you're waiting for is that the Lord will tremble along with you. Tatte anukampa. That He comes so close to you that He really wants to feel what you're feeling. That if you're trembling, even if it's something superficial or selfish or materialistic, some conditioning, but He will tremble with you. Like say a child is the lollipop of the child fell down into the sand and starts crying, and the mother comes, and the mother also expresses so much sadness. It's almost like the mother's about to cry too. Now the mother knows this is a very insignificant event, but for the child it means a lot. And it's part of the mother's love to say, I'm here with you, my child. I feel your pain. Even though the pain itself is incredibly inconsequential and immature. It doesn't matter. So similarly, in the grand scheme of things, whatever little ups and downs we have in life, the pains that bother us, in the grand scheme of things, it shouldn't matter. The soul is not touched by it. But because we are in that conditioned state and we are emotionally trembling, the Lord comes down and He embraces us just like the mother, and He will also, express some tears maybe. That is the sweetness of anukampa. So we wait for that sweetness of the Lord to manifest in our lives. Tatte anukampasu sumikshamano punjana evatma kritam vipakam. Yes, I know I'm suffering this, but am I mature enough to tolerate it? I better mature myself to tolerate the pains and ups and downs of life and offer with my heart namaskar to Krishna. And that's where Vak comes in. That when we then, if we want that level of mercy, then what is the level of Vak? The words, Hrid Vag Vapur Bir. What is that level that we should be offering? That we can expect and demand the Lord to give us anukampa. Anukampa is a very tall order. He's not just going to come down and resonate with us if our Vak and our Hrid, our heart and our words are not sincere. So you can imagine the quality that's being demanded for in this verse. Yes. So coming back to the speech, in the 4th canto, Prithu Maharaj says, a king or leader who speaks harshly or pridefully becomes feared, not respected. One who uplifts with sweet words wins the hearts of all. You see, even, like I said, when leaders speak, it really matters. And it sets the tone, it sets the mood, it sets the expectations. Is the leader demanding respect or commanding respect? So here it says that the one who uplifts with sweet words wins the hearts of all. Yes, we need to be firm also. And sometimes when you're talking, say the king is about to attack an enemy, even harsh words are in order. It's no problem. And firm speech sometimes, a lot of times needed to create a sense of confidence that our leader is strong and we can rally behind him or her. But a leader who speaks harshly or pridefully does a lot of damage to their sense of confidence of their followers. See? Because prideful speech and harsh speech is not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of strength, it's a sign of weakness. And it can make us, who are followers, feel a little insecure. Srila Prabhupada was known for his remarkable speech. He was soft when firm, and firm when soft. It was interesting. He rebuked when needed, but with purpose and love, both. For example, a devotee said, Prabhupada, I'm unqualified to preach. And Prabhupada said, then become qualified. I have full faith that you can do it. You see, two things. Both correction and encouragement. Become qualified. I have faith you can do it. He's not saying, okay, fine, just keep going the way. No. Buck up. Change yourself. Step out of your comfort zone. But he didn't leave it there. He then offered a loving encouragement. I have faith. You can do it. So both correction and encouragement is a hallmark of Srila Prabhupada. Any leadership or any relationship really is successful when the relationship dynamic brings out the best in the other person. And it's particularly successful when it works both ways. When a teacher brings out the best in the students, and then the student's sincerity and the responsiveness brings out the best in the teacher wants to do more and give their best, you see. And so both ways it's beneficial. So any relationship that brings out the best in the other person is a healthy, progressive growth relationship. And then there's relationships where unfortunately bring out the worst in someone. Like, a person is really good, but if the person is in contact in a relationship with somebody else who is unfair, unjust, harsh, and just constantly insulting and nagging, whatever it may be, it can bring out the worst in the person. Because we all have best parts and worst parts inside us. And we can bring those out depending on how we engage in a relationship. And the key to that relationship is what? Words, vak. Vakyam. Prabhupada, when he spoke to transform, not to dominate. Because we can use our words to do one, we can do transformation or we can do domination. Even when he's debating Mayavadi folks, right? They're famous like morning walks where, I think it was probably Dr. Patel in the Juhu Beach, you go on morning walks. Dr. Patel was very friendly to Prabhupada, but he was always bringing some Mayavadi things in the conversation. And Prabhupada would laugh with him and then say, okay, this is just way wrong. He would just point out why it's way wrong, and then he'd laugh about it and say, okay, let's take some prasadam or something, right? He didn't speak to destroy, but to deliver the truth. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila. 861, it says, one who speaks truthfully with logic and compassion. See, when somebody speaks truthfully with logic and compassion, even enemies listen carefully. See? So the speech, these instructions on speech are peppered all over our scriptures. They're like gems. And doing something as simple as working on our speech can not just transform us, it'll transform those who listen to us. And it can also transform, when we see the effect it has, it'll transform the way we think. Because the way we think will inevitably become the way we speak naturally. See? And then even enemies will listen. So there are some basic practical speech principles we can talk about now. One principle is think before you speak, right? Think twice before you talk. What that means is think about what? What am I thinking? Evaluate. Is it true? Like, do I really know if it's true, or is it hearsay? I just heard it, I'm just relaying it and presenting it as if it is truth. Is it kind? Is it being relayed with a kind gesture, kind heart, kind tone? And is it necessary? It may be true, it may be even kind. It may not be necessary. Not everything has to be said. Especially when we're talking about criticism. So we have to pause before we criticize. And it's particularly difficult when we're in a habit of constantly criticizing, because those habits are hard to get rid of. So think before you speak. You do the checkpoint. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Then speak to uplift, not to win. In other words, sometimes we get into an argument just for the purposes of winning at all costs, even if it means stretching the truth, even if it means really racking your brains to find that one fragment of a quote from a scripture to support your point, even though the point itself may not be particularly valid. But you just have to win. And some of our devotees, and some of us, we are very good at this intellectual wrangling, because we know so many verses and we can combine stuff and take fragments from here and make a fragment from there and really build a case that is completely anti-Krishna conscious, using Krishna conscious quotes. So we have to evaluate, what am I speaking for? What am I talking about? We speak to uplift, not to win. That's not the goal. And especially when we have a disagreement or difference in opinion, then the angle could be that, okay, good. Well, tell me how you see it. I want to really understand. If the other person feels that you really want to understand that other person, then it shifts the mood from argumentative debate to the aim of uplifting and both of us benefiting from it. If we cannot bring ourselves to say, tell me how you see it, I want to understand your point of view. If we cannot do that, we're closing ourselves up like that, then we have to reevaluate and see, where am I headed with this? It's a wasted effort to speak like this. Another principle, correct in private and praise in public. Right? In general, we want to do that. What that does is it maintains a sense of dignity, and it makes the person feel really good that, because obviously it's very obvious. You would feel so much better when someone praises you, appreciates you in front of 2, 3 other, at least a few people. You know, can you imagine how weird it would be if I'm like in front of people, I'm always chastising you on how bad you did this and that, and then when I want to appreciate something, I take you in the side very quietly. Oh, you know, you did it very nicely. You know, right? It's the opposite. Like, why don't you tell a few other people too? You know, it'd be nice. So that's a general principle that we've seen, and Prabhupada would do that too. Another principle is that let us see if we can find opportunities to be vulnerable. Be vulnerable, not critical. In other words, share your feelings too. You know, one of the exchanges of love is to really open up your heart. Of course, you have to choose wisely who you share your feelings to. You don't want to open up to just anybody. Share your feelings too. Like, I can say that I felt left out, Prabhu. Not blaming you, I'm just saying, just sharing what I felt. I'm not saying you were responsible for it, but somehow I just felt left out. I just want you to know that. It's so, when we do that, we are vulnerable. But being vulnerable in speech is an aspect of being being plain. You know, Prabhupada said, don't be diplomatic, be plain. Devotees are plain. Just be straightforward, honest, and in other words, express yourself. We do have to be careful with whom we can express ourselves, but we have to find that person, that progressive, kind devotee. I think it's important that there is at least one person in our circle to whom we can do that. Speech is a way to, you know how we say, I'm going to vent? But it's not just for venting. It's really for a way to connect and having a channel where you can express yourself and where you can find some healing, some encouragement, support. That's the whole idea of community, devotional community. In ISKCON, our flagship product that we're selling is love and encouragement. That's our product. This is the thing that's such scarce. It's so scarce. It's a commodity. And when people from outside come and they feel the love and encouragement, wow, this place is saturated with this. I don't know what it is, but there's something here. So now, within this circle of devotees, we don't want to be giving discouragement. We want to just giving encouragement. Encouragement and help. Like Prabhupada would give firm encouragement and help. You know, in the beginning, when the devotees would come to Prabhupada, the very beginning days, and the scholars were wondering, why are these people so crazy after this gentleman? You know, until he met Prabhupada, right? There's that video. Until I met Bhaktivedanta Swami, and it made a lot of sense because he was just so loving and encouraging. He exuded that. This is what it means that you feel the presence of love in a person because they're giving encouragement. What does it mean when we say, from him ecstatic prema emanates? That's what it means. When you're in that person's presence, you feel loved. You feel encouraged. Because the world out there is discouraging enough. We don't need to give more of that here. See? So, when we are vulnerable in a community that's healing, then you make quantum leaps in spiritual growth. See? Another principle that we can consider in speech is clarifying, not assuming. Assumptions create so many misunderstandings, isn't it? You assume something. Like, if you didn't understand, or if you think a particular statement could mean some couple of different things, like if it's somewhat ambiguous, better to clarify. Did you really mean it this way? Don't assume that they meant it this way, for sure. And in particular, what we do is some of us become very expert at assuming the worst. You know, assuming the worst intention of somebody, and then that festers, and we don't clarify, we don't talk about it, and then it festers resentment, creates resentment, and just sits and gets worse and worse. So it's better to clarify instead of assuming. When you assume, I saw a very nice, funny breakdown of the word assume. So the guy, he was a communications expert, and he wrote the word assume, and they broke it down into 3 sections. Right? You've seen that one? No. Oh, okay. So the first 3 letters, and then you and me. When you assume, you make a donkey of you and me. You make an ass of you and me, right? So we want to clarify instead of assume. If you get in the habit of doing that, so many disastrous relationship breakups can be just avoided altogether. You can do it nicely. Prabhu, I didn't quite follow. Is this exactly what you meant? Or I'm not sure if I understand, but if I reword it, does it make sense that I understood you correctly? It requires a little bit of practice, requires a little bit of thought. Once you get in the habit of it, it just creates a sense of peace in the whole community, if everybody's doing it. Avoids resentment, avoids misunderstanding. Misunderstanding, miscommunication, misgiving, all these are all related. Coming back to how we want to speak, always we want to look at the tone of voice and how it is spoken. In this case of Indra, remember he spoke mildly, but he was applying his intelligence, right? Buddhiman. In Jiva Goswami's Bhakti Sandarbha, Anucheda 265, it says, improperly spoken words, even if philosophically correct, are to be rejected as unfavorable to bhakti. It's powerful. Yes, philosophically what you said was 100% correct, but how you said it, the tone of voice, the motivation behind that particular statement, if it's not aligned with the values of love and encouragement, then they are to be rejected. These words are to be rejected as unfavorable to bhakti. Jiva Goswami, the greatest scholar who ever walked on this earth, is writing this. So we can take some clues from these statements. So just to close and make some reflections, let us take away some of these points. Spiritual communication is a daily sadhana. It's part of our sadhana. It's not different from cultivating deeper chanting and reading. Our communication is important. Active listening and all that. This is also the Ministry of Communications. We try to give courses on this, to active listening, communicating. Right? Like Indra, we must be intelligent in speech, not reactive. And like Bali Mahārāja, we should appreciate the simple, humble dialogue. Bali Mahārāja told these generals, okay, you guys listen. Don't think of this opportunity to cut their heads off. No, no, no. You listen. And like Prabhupada, we must speak to transform hearts, not just to defend positions. It's not the point. We don't need to be defensive about these things. In Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter, it says, forgiveness, truthfulness, and peacefulness are qualities of the divine. So we can ask ourselves, did my speech today bring others closer to Krishna? Prabhupada wrote some nice letters. I'll read a few sections from Prabhupada's letters. He wrote to Karandar in 1970. If someone is doing nicely, we should encourage them by praising them. Not that we should always be discouraging or criticizing. That is not good. That'll ruin everything. So try to encourage all your God brothers and God sisters in their service and try to help them do better and better. So this highlights the importance of praise and encouragement, especially in public, which boosts the morale and fosters unity. Another letter he wrote in 1972 in Vrindavan. A Vaishnava is always tolerant. He does not pick a quarrel. If there is any mistake done by others, he does not take very seriously. He tries to correct him. He tries to correct him. Otherwise, he does not take very seriously. So again, he's emphasizing gentle correction and a sense of tolerance rather than harshness and public humiliation. Letter to Upendra, in 1970, he says, so my request to you is that you try to help your God brothers and God sisters, not to try to find out some fault. We should always look for the good qualities of others, not their faults. And then he wrote also about the harm of criticizing in public. The letter to Bali Mahārāja in 1970. He says, I have already instructed the GBC members not to criticize each other in front of outsiders. Obviously, he was dealing with stuff. And this is 1970. GBC was like brand new, right? I think when did we start? Was it 1970 when he formed it? Yeah, around that time. You know, and this is in February 1970, like very early. The whole concept of GBC was fairly new. So I've already instructed GBC members not to criticize each other in front of outsiders. That is not good at all. It should be avoided. So this shows Prabhupada's clear instruction, right? That correction or criticism should be done privately or internally, not in front of other people or non-devotees for sure. This letter to my Guru Maharaj, Satsvarup Maharaj, he wrote this in 1970. He says, deal with all the devotees very tactfully and sympathetically. The devotees are all sincere souls. So try to encourage them as far as possible. It is not good to find out someone's faults. So the instruction here is to inspire and elevate, not publicly. So you can see how Prabhupada was really teaching us to manufacture our flagship product, love and encouragement. It's not easy living in a communal system. It's not easy. We know that. You are living it every day. I don't need to tell you how difficult your life is. But in spite of all these difficulties, you are going on and giving so much encouragement to each other and to the outside world. It is an inspiration for me to see that happening here. Just cooperation between brothers is so rare that the Supreme Lord blessed, was it the Prachetas? He came and said, yes, he came and said that, I'm so pleased with the fact, you guys are so many brothers, but the fact that you're working together, I'm so pleased that I'm going to give you whatever boon you want. Because he knows how hard it is to living together and work together and to give Krishna to others. So these principles of speech that Prabhupada has taught us, if we can maybe structure them in our thought process and fold them into how we react and proactively behave, it really, really uplift our spirits so much. You know, and in particular, those who are leaders, you know, like Indra is a leadership position, Bali Mahārāja leadership position, and they both understood the value of these things. You know, so thank you very much for your kind attention to this topic. I hope it was pleasing or at least somewhat valuable, and kindly forgive me if I've made any mistakes, and feel free to correct me. I don't mind being corrected in public. I live for that, so please go ahead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna?
Hold on, Vijay.
Wait, is that Vijay Krishna Prabhu from Portugal?
Yes.
I can hear you, Prabhu. I'm just going to tell you before that I can hear you right now. Yeah, you don't need to ask that. I can hear you.
But hold
on, Prabhu. We have a question here in the temple room.
It's just
of course, I can wait. No problem.
Just be a minute or so. When you were talking about the Anukampa,
yes,
I was thinking of the fourth verse of the main four verses in the Gita. Tesham eva anukampa aham jnanajam tamaha. And I also, before you mentioned that, I was, he's going to get into this anukampa, means trembling in sympathy, you know, and that's so moving when you think that Krishna's saying it about himself, you know. Yeah. That if those who are, and what's the qualification when he'll do that? To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding which they come to me. To them, to show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So that's right there in Krishna. And then one other point I'd like to make, and that is, I was in Bhagavatam 4:20-25. This is a famous verse. What is this? Oh, I'm sorry. A pure devotee always engages in the service of the Lord, taking shelter of his lotus feet. This is the purport. And therefore he has a direct connection with the saffron mercy particles that are strewn over the lotus feet of the Lord. Although when a pure devotee speaks, the articulation of his voice may resemble the sound of the material sky, the voice is spiritually very powerful because it touches the particles of saffron dust on the lotus feet of the Lord. As soon as the sleeping living entity hears the powerful voice emanating from the mouth of a pure devotee, he immediately remembers his eternal relationship with the Lord, although up until that moment he had forgotten everything. And it's such an important, you know, and that's why, you know, Srila Prabhupada left so many recordings of him, you know, speaking and singing, and of course there's also the dictation, at least the Krishna book we have, you know. So we should take advantage of that, because it's he's always his voice is always saturated with that prema that he feels for Krishna. So it's so important. Even saying the same words, because it's coming from the pure devotee, it's that much more potent. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much. Yes, Lijamani Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Madana-gopāla Prabhu. Thank you. It was a wonderful lecture. I'm wondering about the question. You mentioned a few things that help us to speak. We speak to uplift, we correct in private, praise in public, and then we do not assume and clarify. Maybe I missed something. Oh yeah, find opportunity to be vulnerable. And this is a small reflection. I think even if we develop these things in the very beginning of Krishna consciousness, without being on a very advanced spiritual platform, it's still a beneficial practice for community, relationship, and everything. Even materially speaking, people who have that skill, they can better relate to people. And the question I had is, why is that in our society, for example, in ISKCON, this is not being stressed in the very beginning when we join the ashram, for example, when we come in association with devotees? It's kind of something that you naturally develop and come at some point of your maturity in Krishna consciousness. Why these things are not being mentioned thoroughly in the very beginning so we can have better communication?
It's a good question, and it's probably a question for us as a community to think about and to make it a part of the, say, Bhakti program and curriculum. I think it should, like, just what I covered today in half an hour. It could be a half an hour module as part of your Bhakti program. You don't need to have a 2-week seminar on this, right? Just this much, it gives you some framework. I know that our devotee care ministry does things like this, where they encourage you attend the Zoom seminars, and they cover a lot of these principles there. The Ministry of Communications also has active listening, and so it's part of communications. We don't do it enough. We do try to offer it nationwide or internationally, anybody who can join, or you can watch recordings. But I agree with you. I think it would be very nice to make it a part of the structured curriculum, that active listening, all these principles, and especially if we can put Prabhupada's examples. Otherwise it just looks like some self-help stuff we got from the corporate world, and then you don't feel so connected to it because you don't have Prabhupada's example or something tangible. So if you combine Prabhupada's examples with something like Jiva Goswami and make it really devotional, then people will be able to take that prasadam nicely. I think that means something. It's like when I took the GBC College course, if you're familiar with GBC College, it's a very managerial, structured, best practices kind of course, but it is beautifully done because they incorporate so many of Prabhupada's examples in it. So you feel that, so you have a principle of how to build a team, and then you see some Prabhupada examples, how he did it. So it means something then. The best practices based on what we learned from the corporate world, but how Prabhupada also did it, and how the scriptures support that. So similarly, if we can package that part of your new Bhakti program, or even just talk about it more often, it'll be appreciated, I'm sure. The point is very well taken, Prabhu. And I brought these things up in class, and I think maybe we can bring them more often in class, these principles. Vijay Krishna Prabhu?
Yes,
How are you doing in the Azores? Everything okay?
Yes, everything okay, Prabhu. Thank you for asking. I do have a question, but Maitreya Prabhu is here. Maybe he would like to go first in the case that he has any contribution. I can wait.
You're very kind. I appreciate the class. I very much like the transcendental, heartfelt speech. I'm just basking in that message. Thank you. Vijay, go right ahead.
You're welcome, Maitreya Prabhu. Well, Madana-gopāla Prabhu, my question is based on a shloka from Bhagavad Gita, which goes as follows. Quote, austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting Vedic literature. So based on this shloka, my question is, why is it that regularly reciting Vedic literature is categorized as an austerity? That is my question.
Yeah, I don't know if you've tried pronouncing some of those Vedic literatures. It's quite an austerity. Yes, it is austerity because Vedic literatures, first of all, the volume of it is very big. Second of all, the Vedic literatures, they are in their nature, although encouraging, also quite corrective. And they show us a mirror. It gives us standards by which to live up to. The standards are pretty high. So if you're constantly reading these things and you're reflecting, wait a minute, I'm not quite there yet. I'm not nearly as good as I should be. That's quite austere to hear that again and again. That you need to change, you know. That's part of the Vedic literature austerity. It's like studying, right? Kids don't like to study, right? But they're encouraged to study, and they're told by the parents, if you study, you'll do much better in life, and so on. It's a bit of an austerity, and austerity leads to something sweet at the end always. You know. So similarly, that's why the recitation of Vedic literature at many levels is considered austerity of speech. That is hard to do in the beginning, but as you get better and better at it, it's less austere, and you get the reward. The reward means you are more aligned with the absolute truth. You become a much better person. And yes, there's some pressure in changing yourself. It's not easy changing ourselves. But growth happens outside the comfort zone. And that's what the Vedic literatures encourage us to step into. Beyond the comfort zone, but before the break point. That's where the magical space where growth happens. You know, you want to push yourself where it's not comfortable. Some voluntary inconvenience, Prabhupada calls it. Tapasya means voluntary inconvenience to get better. Like your weight training, people go weight training in the gym. You know, you can lift, say, 20 pounds. You can, you know, lift some weights and you see muscles getting stronger and bigger. So it's not easy, it's uncomfortable. But then as you get stronger and bigger, then you can lift 50 pounds. All of a sudden, 20 pounds is your comfort zone. So that 20 pounds is no longer good for your growth because you're already at 50-pound level, right? So, but if I were to attempt 200 pounds, it'll break my muscle, I get an injury. So we have to work within that space of beyond comfort and well before breaking point. And that's where we grow, we get stronger, and we get better. And so the Vedas, Vedic literatures, even if you look at Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives you a whole spectrum in the 12th chapter of things you could be doing to get better. Become a pure devotee, fully focus your consciousness in me and be fully in love with me. That's the top. If you can't do that, then practice the regular principle of devotion. If you can't do that, then work for me. If you can't do that, then give me the fruits of your labor. If you can't do that, then practice giving your fruits of your labor to somebody else or some worthy cause. You know? So basically, if you can't do 100 pounds, do 50 pounds. If you can't lift 50, you know, you want to get better and better, but at least you know that's your goal. So the Vedic literatures, they encourage us to do things that are uncomfortable, and therefore, in a sense, it's an austerity. But it's something that will yield results if we follow. Not just recite, but we follow. All right, Vijay Krishna Prabhu, does that help?
Oh, if I may, Madana-gopāla Prabhu, better than helpful, a very clarifying and most beautiful, brilliant answer to my question. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
Obrigado.
De nada.
A comment. Vijay, please forgive me. he's you know where he is. You know him, right?
I know, he's my good friend.
Yeah.
Lives in the Azores, right behind the airport.
So he's been attending classes here for several years.
Sure.
You know, even though he's physically in Portugal or in the Azores, whatever. So back in the pandemic days, he would ask questions in the classes, sometimes even Gita class, mostly Bhagavatam classes. And he would, when I would give the answer, he says, "Oh, it's breathtaking." Pandemic, right? So I did criticize you publicly, Vijay, and I want to apologize for that, even though you were praising me.
Oh, please, no need for that.
And then he dropped that adjective. He started using other things.
Yeah, it's not a good word for COVID.
Can I offer a brief comment?
Please.
So Dravida Prabhu made quoted that verse about the lotus mercy particles that are carried by the words of the pure devotee because Krishna is in his heart. So the Vedas are replete with the science of speech. There's Vitanda, which is just like almost a curse.
Sure.
Jalpa, I just want to be heard. Vada is even higher. But we've been gifted with this idea that you nicely elucidated in your class of this transcendental speech that completely can transform the hearts of those that hear it. So I'm just feeling very grateful for your association. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveta Bhaktavinda ki jai. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.